My name is Nathaniel Cross. I'm 38 years old, and for the past decade, I have been the strategic backbone of my family's business empire in Boston. In our circle, I'm known as a rational one, the man who stays composed when deals collapse, who finds solutions where others see dead ends. I cultivated that image carefully because in business, emotion is a liability. Control is everything. I married Marissa 7 years ago, in 2018. She was 29, I was 31, and back then, I truly believed we were building something solid. We met at a Cambridge fundraiser. She was captivating, ambitious, and appeared to share my vision of building a lasting legacy. I opened doors for her, brought her into the family business, and watched her adapt effortlessly within cross operations. But about 8 months before the annual family reunion, fractures began to surface. Small deviations at first, late nights explained by client dinners, meetings she insisted couldn't be moved, stories that were always just plausible enough. Her phone became a fortress, passwords changing twice in 3 months. When I brushed her shoulder while she texted, she recoiled as if I'd caught her committing a crime. I'm not jealous by nature, but I am observant. That's why I thrive. I saw the patterns, the inconsistencies, the subtle tremors beneath the surface. So I began to truly watch. The family reunion was set for late September 2024 at our Cape Cod estate. Over 40 relatives and associates, the usual gathering we'd upheld for 15 years. I anticipated it the way one anticipates a root canal, but tradition is non-negotiable in the Cross family. What I didn't foresee was that Marissa would weaponize that tradition as the stage for her betrayal. During dinner in the main hall, with talk swirling about quarterly earnings and the Red Sox, she stood, tapping her glass. I assumed it was a toast or charity announcement. Instead, she looked straight at me and declared, "I have an announcement. Nathaniel and I are getting divorced. I've been seeing Ethan for 6 months, and we're in love. I wanted everyone to know before lawyers get involved." Silence didn't just fall. It suffocated the room. My uncle's fork hit his plate. My mother clutched her chest. Ethan sat there with a smug grin, as if he'd claimed a prize. I didn't flinch. Inside, a cold mechanism clicked into place. Outwardly, I simply nodded, set down my glass, and said, "Excuse me, I need some air." I walked out, every gaze on my back, and stepped onto the veranda overlooking the Atlantic. Only then did I allow myself a thin smile, because Marissa had made a fatal miscalculation. She believed I had been blind, that I would be shattered and unprepared. She had no idea I had been preparing for months. In late May 2024, I noticed how frequently she mentioned Ethan, his ideas, his insights, how he understood pressure, innocent individually, damning together. I am a strategist. You never move on suspicion alone. You gather facts. You construct the full board before your first move. I called my attorney, Jesse Drummond, a meticulous professional I'd trusted for 12 years. Over coffee in downtown Crossing, I said, "I need you to review my prenup, and I need clarity on asset protection and divorce." He asked, "Protection or preparation?" I answered, "Both." The prenup was solid, but Marissa's involvement in subsidiaries created legal shadows. A clever lawyer could twist them. So Jesse and I began restructuring. Quietly, corporate documents were drafted, disguised as routine compliance updates. Buried within them were clauses shifting control, isolating voting power, and making her shares meaningless without my consent. In early June, she signed them absent-mindedly while scrolling her phone, likely texting Ethan, never lifting her eyes as she erased her leverage with each signature. "More paperwork," she sighed. "Annual compliance." I replied, but paperwork wasn't enough. I needed truth. Was this infidelity alone, or was there a deeper scheme? So I hired Patricia Reynolds, a former FBI agent turned investigator. I paid her $8,000 and handed her 3 names. I wasn't hunting for emotion. I was building the end game. Marissa Cross, Ethan Whitmore, and any associates who might be involved were all included in Patricia's investigation. 3 weeks later, in mid-July, her report arrived, 52 pages thick, filled with surveillance photos, financial records, and intercepted communications. The affair was undeniable, beginning back in March 2024 during a business conference in New York. But it was the additional revelations that truly caught my attention. Ethan was drowning in gambling debt. High-stakes poker games in an underground club in the financial district had left him owing over $85,000 to people who didn't accept apologies or payment plans. The kind of men who knock on doors at midnight and settle accounts with broken bones. And then there was a third player, Marcus Ellery, Marissa's ex-brother-in-law from her first marriage. I'd met him briefly, a smooth-talking venture capitalist with perpetual air of someone selling promises disguised as opportunities. Patricia tracked multiple meetings between the three of them, in quiet coffee shops, dimly lit hotel lounges, bars where conversations vanished into background noise. They weren't just having an affair, they were building a plan. Patricia managed to acquire phone records, legally questionable, but I didn't ask. The messages were thinly coded but unmistakable. Their scheme was calculated. Use the divorce to dismantle me. Marissa would claim she was instrumental in building the Cross empire, inflating her role to justify a massive share of assets. Ethan would testify, reinforcing her fabricated contributions. Marcus had already lined up attorneys, financial strategists, even a PR firm to craft a public narrative portraying me as a controlling husband who stifled his wife's ambition. They'd paint Marissa as the overlooked architect, deserving of equity, sympathy, and power. With that leverage, they planned to push me out of my own family's company. I sat in my Beacon Hill office, reading Patricia's report for the third time, and I started laughing, not out of amusement, but at the sheer arrogance. They believed they were moving pieces on a board I had built. Marissa thought she was orchestrating a masterstroke. Ethan believed this was his ascension. Marcus saw vulnerability. None of them realized they were already ensnared. From late July through September 2024, I reinforced every wall. I compiled records of every business decision Marissa had touched, especially the ones she'd opposed that later succeeded. I gathered statements from department heads, affirming the true architects of growth. I moved personal assets into secure trusts, updated beneficiaries, changed passwords, and activated freeze protocols on joint accounts requiring dual approval. Jesse drafted divorce papers, not to file immediately, but to have poised for impact, including forensic audits, fraud clauses, and enforcement of the prenup's infidelity penalty. Massachusetts may not be purely no fault. Adultery still carries weight in asset division. I tracked Marissa's routine meticulously, her meetings, lies, hours unaccounted for. I never confronted her. I never altered my tone. I simply observed, documented, and prepared. The week before the reunion, Jesse called and said, "Everything is ready." And I knew, when she made her move, I would already be 10 steps ahead. "Everything's in place," Jesse said. "The moment she files or makes any move, we count her immediately. She'll have zero leverage." "Good," I replied, because she would move soon. I could feel in the way her messages had grown breathless and defensive. I was right. Only she chose a far more public stage than I expected. The morning after her announcement at the reunion, I woke in a guest room at the estate to 37 missed calls and a family in shambles. Texts swung from sympathetic to accusatory, my mother begging to talk, my uncle demanding a strategy session. Everyone offering an opinion I refused to hear. I called Jesse instead. "It's time," I said. "File everything." Within 2 hours, divorce papers were filed in Suffolk County, adultery cited, prenup enforcement requested, full financial disclosure demanded, and an immediate freeze on all joint accounts and assets pending investigation. Jesse also moved for emergency injunctive relief, arguing Marissa posed a flight risk with marital funds. The judge granted it before day's end. Her access evaporated. Cards linked to joint accounts declined. The Tesla lease flagged for return, building access suspended without my authorization. She called that evening furious. "What the hell did you do?" she screamed. "My cards aren't working. I can't access anything." "File for divorce and you wanted lawyers," I said calmly. "Now they're involved. You can't just cut me off. I have rights. I helped build that business," she spat. "Did you?" I asked, because I compiled the records to prove otherwise. We would settle that in court. Her lawyer, Howard Pellman, Expensive tie, middling record. Called Jesse with grand demands. Jesse literally laughed and told him to file his motions and see him in court. Legal warfare satisfied something, but wasn't enough. I needed to collapse the whole conspiracy. I targeted Ethan. I called Patricia, the gambling debts, who held his leash. She warned me. Dangerous people, not businessmen. I didn't care. 2 days later, she gave me a name, Vincent Carboni, who ran the underground poker operation out of a private club near South Station. Patricia advised against any direct contact. Common sense said the same, but I understood leverage. I had Jesse reach out through a mutual acquaintance, a retired state police detective who did security consulting for us. The message was plain. I wanted to buy Ethan's debt. Vincent answered personally, rough voice, thick Boston drawl. "You're the cousin, huh? The one his wife's screwing?" he growled. "That's me," I said. "Why buy his debt?" he asked. "You planning something stupid?" "I'm planning something smart," I replied. "He owes you $85,000. I'll give you $95,000 cash now. You transfer the debt to me. 10 grand for a phone call." He laughed like my nerve, and for the first time since Marissa's toast, something to chaos felt controlled and precise, like a hand closing on the first piece of a long-anticipated trap. "You're practical, but why?" Vincent asked. "Because I'm going to use it as leverage," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "And unlike Ethan, I pay my debts." We met at a quiet diner in Dorchester in early October 2024. Vincent arrived with one man, cautious but curious. I came alone, carrying a weathered briefcase holding $95,000 in neatly stacked hundreds. I had withdrawn the cash over 3 weeks from various corporate accounts, each withdrawal carefully recorded under our security consulting budget. Nothing suspicious. Everything legitimate on paper. The briefcase itself was one we reserved for high-value transfers, unremarkable to anyone but purposeful to me. We signed a simple handwritten agreement. Vincent handed me Ethan's markers, proof of his recklessness, and we shook hands. "Your cousin's an idiot," he remarked. "Kept doubling down on garbage hands, no discipline." "He's always been like that," I replied, now owning the debt Ethan didn't even know had changed hands. But acquiring Ethan's leash was enough. I needed to corner Marcus. I asked Patricia to dig deeper into his past. Every deal, every rumor, every near miss. What she uncovered was a gift. In 2019, Marcus had danced dangerously close to an SEC securities fraud case involving a suspicious startup collapse. He escaped charges, but barely. The files were sealed, yet summaries existed, just enough to expose his history if pressed. Marcus wasn't clean. He was calculated filth, dressed in tailored suits. His involvement with Marissa and Ethan made this more than betrayal. It was conspiracy to defraud the cross-family business. That wasn't merely civil. It bordered criminal. I went to Rebecca Shaw, our corporate counsel of 2 decades, and laid everything before her. Patricia's dossier, the coordinated communications, the manipulation strategy. She turned pale. "This is fraud," she said quietly. "They tried to weaponize divorce to steal equity. That's criminally actionable." "I know," I replied, "but I don't want charges. Not yet. I want leverage." She understood. "What's your play?" "I'm going to give them a choice," I said. "The easy way or the hard one." I chose the battleground carefully. A modest diner called Rosie's in Cambridge, a place stained with memories. It was where Marissa and I had our first date 8 years ago, when I still believed in her sincerity. Jesse sent formal invites, neutral location, mediation discussion, settlement opportunities. Their lawyers accepted immediately, convinced I was ready to negotiate. Late October 2024, I arrived first, took the corner booth, ordered coffee. Jesse sat beside me with a leather portfolio thick with truths they weren't prepared to face. When Marissa walked in with Ethan and Marcus, accompanied by Howard Pellman and 2 more attorneys, I didn't stand. I merely gestured to the seats. "Thanks for coming," I said. Marissa looked composed, almost triumphant. Ethan's arm around her was possessive, smug. Marcus watched quietly, calculating exits. "Let's make this quick," Howard began. My client seeks fair compensation for her contributions. Fair compensation. I echoed. I slid the first document forward. The operating agreement she'd signed in June. Highlighted clauses. What is this? She asked. Your signature. I said. Transferring operational control. You signed it. Her face drained. That was routine. Compliance. Compliance with state law. I replied. Howard snatched it, reading fast. His certainty faltered. Jesse spoke evenly. It's valid. Voluntary. Standard governance. I slid the second document. Patricia surveillance. Photos. Dates. Motels. Betrayal in black and white. Adultery. I said. Section 7. Paragraph 3 of our prenup. Grounds for fault-based exclusion. Marissa's hands trembled. You spied on me? I protected my interests, I answered. Then I turned to Marcus. You thought you could turn a divorce into a corporate coup. You groomed Ethan, fed Marissa delusions, planned to force me out. Marcus feigned confusion. I slid phone logs, emails, financial projections. This is conspiracy, I said softly. Fraud. Coordinated. Provable. Silence. Even their lawyers froze. Ethan finally muttered, You can't prove conspiracy, we were just talking. I leaned back, calm. Actually, I said, I already have. But let's talk about something else first. Your gambling debt. His face drained of all color, and Marissa's eyes snapped toward him. Confusion turning quickly to alarm. What gambling debt? She demanded, her voice trembling. I didn't look away. Ethan here owes $85,000 to some very unpleasant people in the financial district. I said evenly. Underground poker. He's been losing for months. Except he doesn't owe them anymore. He owes me. I slid Vincent's paperwork across the table. Markers, signatures, every ugly detail. Ethan looked like he might be sick. You're lying, Marissa whispered, though even she didn't sound convinced. Call Vincent Carboni if you think I'm lying, I said. I'll wait. No one reached for a phone. They knew it was true. Marcus was already scanning for a way out, his lawyers murmuring frantically. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, my tone calm but edged with finality. Marissa, you're going to accept the divorce terms exactly as laid out in our prenuptial agreement. No additional claims, no contested assets, no alimony. You walk away with what you entered the marriage with, plus your base share of joint personal assets. That's it. In return, I don't pursue fraud charges against you or your accomplices. That's blackmail, Howard said weakly. That is settlement offer based on documented criminal conspiracy. Jesse corrected, his voice sharper than mine. My client is fully within his rights to press charges. We have proof of coordinated efforts to defraud a family business. The district attorney would be very interested. But my client is offering a resolution. I turned to Ethan. Your debt to me is forgiven, but you're out permanently. No consulting, no contracts, no involvement with any cross-affiliated enterprise. You disappear from our professional world entirely. He nodded, too stunned to speak. And Marcus, I said, locking eyes with him, you will resign from every board and every position tied to our network. Quietly, immediately. If I ever hear your name linked to our interests again, I release everything to the SEC and let them finish what they started in 2019. Marcus stood, fury and fear warring in his expression. This is extortion. This is consequence, I replied. You gambled and lost. Accept it or fight. But if you fight, you'll explain your conspiracy to a federal jury. He walked out, his lawyers scrambling after him. The message was understood. Marissa was crying now, mascara streaking down her cheeks. I loved you, she choked. Once, I really did. Maybe, I said quietly. But love doesn't survive greed. You chose what you chose. Howard dragged the process out for another hour, but it was theater. The decision had already been made. Marissa signed that afternoon. No alimony, no equity, nothing beyond the prenup. She kept her jewelry, her car, and $220,000, her half of joint savings. Everything else was gone. The next week, early November 2024, I called an emergency board meeting. My uncle Richard, my mother, The shareholders all were there. I presented the evidence, the attempted takeover disguised as divorce. We need leadership that protects legacy, I said, not ego. They voted unanimously to make me CEO. My uncle stepped down with grace. You earned it, Nathaniel. You protected us. The audit that followed revealed discrepancies, no crimes, but proof of Marissa claiming credit for deals she never touched. It validated everything. Protocols were tightened. Over the next 3 months, I rebuilt trust and fortified our structure. Meanwhile, the authorities closed in on Vincent. In December 2024, Boston police raided the underground poker ring. Vincent was arrested and Ethan's name surfaced. He was questioned, charged with illegal gambling. He took a plea, fines community service counseling, a criminal mark that would trail him for life. He left Boston, resurfacing in Phoenix, managing a car dealership, the first honest job of his life. Marissa vanished into New York, chasing vague dreams in fashion. We haven't spoken since. Marcus disappeared entirely, his reputation ruined enough to exile him from every circle that mattered. Sometimes the best punishment is silence. But I wasn't finished building. Rosie's, the diner where I confronted them, went up for sale. The owner, retiring, wanted someone who'd preserve it. I bought it in January 2025. Paid cash. Kept the name, the staff, the soul. I renovated the back room, turning it into the home of the Cross Foundation, a nonprofit for young entrepreneurs from working-class roots. Microloans, mentorship, a chance I never had. Twice a month, we host dinners, old power meeting new ambition. It became something I was proud of, not built on revenge, but renewal. 6 months after the divorce, late April 2025, I received a letter from Ethan. 3 pages, handwritten, an apology. He admitted his jealousy, his resentment, how it twisted into betrayal. I don't want forgiveness, he wrote. I want understanding. I called him. You shattered trust, I said. You nearly destroyed what our grandfather built. I know, he whispered. I'm working, learning, trying. Good. Keep trying. If you ever truly want to rebuild, call Jesse. Not for a job, for guidance. Earn it. He cried. I don't know if he'll ever call. But offering redemption doesn't weaken you. It proves you've already won. I'm 38 now, nearing 39. Successful. Building something that matters. I date casually. No rush. I've learned that trust is slow and betrayal is instant. People ask if I regret how I handled it, if I was too calculated. I tell them no. They chose greed. I chose consequence. That isn't revenge. It's accountability. And from accountability, I build a legacy not from ashes, but from truth